Hello, hello, Hill Squad. Thanks for being here with us today. We have a great episode that is all about helping you attract more joy into your life. Our guest today is Dr. Tiffany Moon. She's a board certified anesthesiologist, author, podcast host, entrepreneur, and mom. But you may remember her the most from season 5 of Bravo's Real Housewives of Dallas, where she made history as the first medical doctor and first Chinese American cast member. Behind the cameras, Tiffany was battling something far more real: perfection. Today, Tiffany and I are going to talk about how she unraveled past traumas to transform her life, the lessons she's learned about reality TV, and the joy prescriptions she is constantly renewing. But before we dive in, our quote of the day: joy isn't a luxury for the lucky. It's a medicine we can all learn to prescribe ourselves. And that is from Tiffany. So let's get started. Tiffany, I'm so excited to chat with you. It's funny. In your book, you talk about circadian rhythm and what you did with your stepkids. And I was like, oh my God, she's my person. This is so great. But we're going to talk about your new book, Joy Prescriptions. But before we do, I know some of the people listening or watching know you from Real Housewives of Dallas. And I just want them to kind of know a little bit about your history before that, because you were a doctor before that. You still are a doctor, but before you rose to, Housewives fame. But you've definitely faced a lot of health struggles yourself. So I'd love to know a little bit about your journey in the health world, and kind of how you've navigated all of that.
Yeah. So ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be a doctor so that I could help make people feel better. When I was little and I would play with my dolls, people play house and someone has to be the mommy and the daddy. Well, I was like playing doctor and I would make my stuffed animals and dolls be sick so that I could treat them. I will
Wow.
say, I don't think the medical education in this country is comprehensive. I think there's a whole side of Eastern medicine, alternative medicine, nutrition that the basic medical school curriculum does not even touch on. We're kind of taught like physiology, disease, this is what you do, and these are the drugs that you give, but that's ignoring this whole other side of taking care of the body as a whole. I myself struggled with infertility. I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, which was very like shocking to me because in medical school I learned that that disease is usually associated with women who are overweight, have like hirsutism, which is hair in places that you shouldn't want it. And I was like, I'm not the picture of that at all. And so I felt a little bit, I don't know, like misled. Um, and yeah, I have a curiosity for all things wellness. And after I became a doctor, I feel like I got a whole secondary education that I went out and got on my own by reading all these books back here, listening to podcasts, having conversations with people outside the traditional medical sphere.
Was that because you needed to heal yourself?
Yes. And when I started working as an anesthesiologist in the hospital and actually practicing medicine, I was like, wait a second, what are we doing? We're kind of like treating this very specific thing, but nobody was zooming out and looking at the patient as a whole. We're kind of just pushing people through the assembly line of medicine. And I was like, this is not right. And then I was trying to heal myself. And then my mother got diagnosed with hypertension and cardiac disease. And so I just wanted to like read more about it.
I think it's such a great testimony. I always love when I have doctors on the show that can give us a glimpse behind the scenes. And whether it's through personal experience or just the frustration that they feel sometimes when they can't actually help their patients get better because their training doesn't really give you that opportunity. So I think that you just really eloquently described what's happening. And I always tell people, once you know what is, then you can navigate from there. So we know what they're good at. Like if I need a tumor removed from my pancreas, like I did, I'm going there. But if I need to learn how to heal kind of foundationally, I know that I need my naturopath. I know that I need the sun. I know I need my circadian clock on and working well. I think that it's important when you start to understand that you have to be the CEO of your health. You have to navigate this and understand it, and be like your own doctor, and using your gut and your common sense. Like I sometimes like I tell people when I'm helping them as a fake doctor, I'm like, listen, I'm not a doctor, but I have really good common sense. I have really good gut instincts, and I've been doing this for a long time where I've learned from so many different people. Like yesterday, for example, I'll give you this amazing example. So I work with this body work guy here. He does physical therapy, myofascial, acupressure stuff. And my back has been a disaster. And if you look at my scans, if I went to you as a doctor, you'd be like, oh, it must be the herniated disc or the hemangioma in your spine or the bone lesion. Let's operate. But let's give you all these drugs. There's going to be something like that they're going to do because that's the action steps they know. I go to him and he's digging into my diaphragm, digging into my psoas muscles, my hip. And he's like, oh, yeah, you're just so tight. And your diaphragm is in a whole other place. So he's working on all of this. Of course, instant relief, everything releases. Yesterday, I go with another patient that I was referring, and I always try to help them through the first visit because people, need help asking the right questions. And the woman was asking about her son and a lot of the gut issues he's had since he had a parasite and has had tremendous difficulties since. I mean, it's just spiraled into thing after thing after thing. And he showed us a sliced version of a diaphragm. And there's a hole that goes to your gut. And he was like, his diaphragm could be just so tight and lifted that it needs to be released. And I had this aha moment, Tiffany, where I was like, holy shit. I think because you relaxed my diaphragm, I was able to have bowel movements normally because he was linking something to constipation. And I was like, oh my God, I've had the best bowel movements the last few days because you rubbed my diaphragm. And he's like, yeah, isn't that bananas? No one's going to tell you that. I'm sitting here thinking I have gut issues. There's got to be something wrong with me. No, my diaphragm after surgery, he said, shifted and is like moved. And it needs to now shift back and be, rubbed out or whatever. But these are the breakthroughs that we can have as patients that can be like as your own investigator. Like an investigator always. So I don't know, it's just kind of fascinating. I look at it all as like exciting because you get to kind of figure stuff out. I'm sure you're kind of the same way because I see you nodding.
Yes.
Have
I mean,
you figured out stuff that you're like so excited about too?
the body is interconnected, and sometimes in modern medicine, we treat the body as if it's these organ systems alone, right? You go to the cardiologist, they do an EKG or an echo, they prescribe you these medicines. Then you go to the gastroenterologist, they do an EGD, a colonoscopy, then you get all these other medications. And it's like we're so siloed, but people forget that all these systems are connected. You can have referred pain, all these kinds of things. I will say what the modern medical system in America is excellent at is if you have an acute problem, if you have appendicitis, if you get in a car accident and break your femur, things like that. What we are terrible at is keeping healthy people healthy because that largely is diet, exercise, lifestyle choices, nothing sexy, and more importantly, nothing that you can make massive amounts of money on. The pharmaceutical companies, however, once you get hypertension, diabetes, bowel problems, they can make tons of money off of you because you're on these drugs, likely forever. And
Yeah.
and so I think what you were alluding to is the importance of patient advocacy for themselves. You have to advocate for yourself. Like I tell my patients, you should have a notebook And if you're going to different doctors, you need to be writing notes because we can only retain 40 to 60% of what we hear. And
Yes.
later, 2 days later, 2 weeks later, 2 months later, you really don't remember. So you need to be writing notes. You need to ask your doctor to slow down, spell that thing, say it again, whatever, and then put all the pieces together because your body is not a silo and you need to be, advocating for yourself.
I have my heal journal, my little notes that I take before I go see a doctor because you forget too.
Yeah.
You forget. And then also like if you sit with someone good, like a good health collaborator slash investigator, that's why I always tell people, I'm like, let me help because I will probably think of something at this point that maybe you haven't thought of, but then you can kind of put that puzzle together.
Yeah.
And, it really is understanding what you just said, that this is what they're good at, this is what they're not good at, and then you find people that are good. Like you're the quarterback of a team or you're the coach of the New England Patriots. And you need a kicker, you need a defense, you need the offense. You can't just have one. You got to have a team and you got to now pick the right people for your team that's going to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, did you heal from the PCOS?
Yes, they put me on medications, and I had to basically regulate the cycle of my ovaries. I always have had irregular periods my whole life.
Wow.
And so they put me on birth control for 6 months, and then I was tracking my cycles. I was peeing on this stick every morning and sticking it in a machine to tell me when I would ovulate. And a normal cycle for most women is like 28 to 31 days. My cycles were anywhere between 22 to 42 days. Like it was just
Wow.
crazy. Yeah. And then I had problems conceiving. I had a really terrible miscarriage. Just thing after thing after thing, you know?
Wow.
And then finally, by the grace of God, I was able to get pregnant with my twin girls who are now turning 11 soon. So it's just
Ah.
been, yeah, crazy. But for that period of time, it was really dark because you feel like as a woman, like, I mean, it's your duty, not duty, but you should be able to get pregnant. You should be able to have a family. And to struggle with infertility is just so isolating. I felt really ashamed. I didn't even tell my own mother because I thought that she would shame me. And I was going through all these fertility treatments and just feeling crazy and bloated and like my hormones were all over the place. I would like
Mhm.
watch a TV commercial and start crying. My husband's like, "What is wrong with you?" Um, and it's just, I don't know, like having been a patient and on the other side of medicine, I understand the frustrations that patients have with their doctors and going through the system and having like a 15-minute appointment and you can't get through. And then they're like, okay, if you want to talk more, make another appointment. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot. In the book, you talk about writing your own joy prescriptions. How how did that play into your healing?
All my life, I looked for joy and happiness from external things, like going to the right schools, making the right grades, marrying the right guy. And I would always tell myself, like, I'll be happy when.
Mm,
And then the finish line would move and it'd move. And every time I achieved a milestone, I had a momentary feeling of joy and happiness and gratitude. And then almost immediately it would be like, okay, what's next?
yeah,
And
I
it
get it.
was, and
I
it
get
wasn't until
it.
my 30s that I was like, maybe I need to take joy into my own hands. Maybe the joy needs to come from within instead of always looking for it externally. And I was like, oh, but how do I do that? Right. And then that's when I went on my joy journey. I read all these self-help books. I hired a therapist. I hired an empowerment coach. Like,
An
all
empowerment coach? I've never heard of that.
yeah, because I always played small.
Mm,
My goal in life was to be or at least seem perfect. which basically kept me from trying new experiences because I was like, oh no, I don't want to do that because I might not be good at it. And then people will figure out that I'm not perfect. So I
Mm.
only did things that I knew I would be good at, which is like very few things. It's like doing anesthesia and shopping. Um,
Oh my God,
so
stop. I'm sure you're good at a lot of things.
So when I hired my coach, she really did a lot of mindset work with me to try new experiences and put myself out there. And that's when I was like, okay, I will go on Housewives. Okay, I will, try stand-up comedy. I was like, okay, like trying all these things. But if I hadn't have shifted my mindset, none of those things would have ever happened.
So I feel like I've been my own empowerment coach over the years because I've always been a perfectionist too. What I was looking at recently was someone was writing about it, and it really comes from not feeling safe. And that's your way of like, I'm perfect. Nobody. I'm probably not explaining it well. I'd have to look back at what it was. I just read it recently, but I was always pushing myself because I was so nervous and, the same thing. I wanted to get comfortable with failing because I knew that was a really important thing. And so even like when I was doing Access Hollywood, I created this whole series called Maria's Madcap Adventures. And it was like trying stand-up comedy, trying being a sports announcer, and all these things. And I always say, like, that's where living is done, is when you're trying something new and you're like, oh my God, am I going to be okay? Am I going to make it? Am I going to make it? Oh, okay. I didn't totally fall on my face, or I was actually good at this, or you know what? Maybe this isn't for me. And I'm able to get a laugh at it. But I love the idea if you don't have that avenue, which most people don't, but it's you can try it in any way. I used to do it in church. I would make myself go out and give speeches and stuff. But an empowerment coach I've never heard. I've heard of life coaches, but I really like that because I think people need to be pushed out of their comfort zone. I wonder how much of that helped you break perfection, and have you really broken perfection? Because that's something that's so ingrained. I mean, especially I think in your culture too. I know for me, my parents trained us as, immigrant children that like we had to look perfect to everybody. You don't want anybody to see anything that's not perfect.
Yeah. I was working with my therapist about this need to always be in control.
Mm.
And she said, at the root of control is fear because you're afraid that if you don't control every single little thing, that
Hmm.
everything's going to go sideways. And I was like, oh. And she said, do you think that your tight grasp to control everything these days has anything to do with the fact that when you were a child, you had absolutely no control over your life, being left in China, going to America, moving schools every 2 years? And I was like, oh my God, like it all makes sense now?
Yeah.
I think we don't like to talk about our childhood traumas, but I think it really does influence what we do as adults and how we move about the world consciously or maybe subconsciously.
And sometimes it's a good thing. I mean, you can use the good of it, right? Like I had a Reiki healer, Patty Penn, who's been on the show, and we were talking about some of my traumas, and she was like, "Well, do you think had you not had those traumas, you would have succeeded as quickly as you did?" And I was like, "Oh, no, because it pushed me. It pushed me to want more. It pushed me to want to get out." And so I was like, okay, so there's a positive in this. And now we can unravel the negatives maybe and try to heal from those. But there's always something you can extract. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure. Like the problem with us as humans is that we don't have another human that's like us that did something differently and see how each one turns out, you know?
Good point.
Like I went to college when I was 15 years old. People are always like, "Oh my God." But I was academically gifted, socially not as much. And it was because my father pushed me so hard in math and science and reading. I mean, I would go home and he would give me homework that wasn't assigned from school. Like
Oh
he,
my God.
yes, like thick language books. He like bought them from the bookstore back then, and he would assign me like a chapter or a lesson. So I had the homework from school, which was easy, quite frankly, and then the homework from my dad, and he would always buy 2 grades ahead. So like if I was in 5th grade, I was doing 7th grade math. So of course, by the time I was a freshman in high school, I was taking calculus. And
Woo!
after calculus, there was nothing else. And they were like, oh, I guess we'll just graduate you. So sometimes I'm a little, let's use the word resentful, that I didn't get to have this robust childhood experience filled with extracurricular activities and birthday parties and vacations because I was basically just
Mhm.
doing homework. Like my parents never took me on a vacation ever. Like I did not ride an airplane. Well, I took an airplane to come from China to the United States, and then I didn't ride an airplane again until I was like 15 years old.
Wow.
Um, but even though sometimes I feel resentment towards that, would I have become the person I am today if I hadn't have done those things? Maybe not. I don't know. We'll never know. These are the questions that
Mhm.
we will never have
Yeah.
answers to. But
Well, I
what
grew
I,
up cleaning nightclubs with my parents.
oh,
So 7 days a week, Tiffany, 365 days a year, you were doing homework. I was cleaning people's vomit.
oh my gosh. I don't even want to know the things that you saw in a nightclub, you know?
Oh my God. It was so gross. What women do in those bathrooms with their maxi pads. Oh
Oh,
my, they'd be
gross.
on the wall.
Ew.
Yeah, and that was my bathroom. I had like the large women's bathroom I had to clean. Um,
Oh,
I mean, I didn't have to, but the truth was, if my brother and I didn't pitch in, we'd be there all day. So we had to, if we wanted to get out and be able to see family and friends. But again, what does that do? It only makes you dream big. I used to dream in that nightclub. I'd stand on that stage and I was like, I'm gonna do something great. I want to do this, whatever this is. I had no idea because I never got to see anything live. I was always cleaning after, but I knew something cool was happening there because it was a celebration after. Um, but yeah, it makes us who we are. And I think that there are so many ways to heal from trauma now. I watch people with EMDR, including myself, have incredible experiences. I just sent someone with a severe trauma, and in one session, it was like life changing. This person's able to sleep now. It's really amazing. So I'm like, you know what? I'll take it. I didn't have the childhood. I Dancing with the Stars was the first time, Tiffany, that I got to feel like I was a kid. My parents were coming to my dance recital on ABC. But like we didn't do any of that stuff. We couldn't afford it and we had to work. So there was my neighbor was going to gymnastics classes and she would come home and teach me in the
oh.
backyard. So, we didn't have the normal childhoods, but at the same time, I don't know if I would trade what I am now, what I have now to have that.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And you probably are having the same experience just more ahead than me. I have a two-year old, but you also kind of get to have that with them now,
Yes, I
right?
I feel like I'm reliving my childhood through my children.
Hmm.
Um, buy them gifts and we do things and I took them to the Taylor Swift Eras tour and I pretended that it was for them, but it was for me too.
Okay, but question, are you doing what your dad did with them?
A little bit. Like over the summer, they had to do some assignments because I didn't want their brain to rot for 3 months, you know?
Hmm.
But I'm not nearly as aggressive as my father was. I mean, he would yell at me, he would keep me up until 2 o'clock in the morning if I didn't finish, like that kind of thing. So I'm much more chill with it.
Yeah. but you're
Yeah.
still doing something, which is cool because you see the value of it.
Yes, exactly.
So when you talk about the joy prescriptions, how does one find their joy? Like, how do you find it in a way that's, like you said, that's not external? Because we are trained for external validation to be the main source of pride and joy and all of that. Like, what are the action steps for people to really make that muscle stronger so that you don't need anybody else to make you happy or anything?
I think it is a small series of steps starting with mindset shifts. Because if your mindset is of the notion that, I'll be happy when and I need X, Y, and Z before I feel happy or fulfilled, it doesn't work because you don't enjoy the journey and then you get to the finish line and the finish line is never what it's cracked up to be. There's just isn't this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that we think that there is. And so you're perpetually disappointed. I wrote in the book this math equation, if you will, that happiness equals reality minus expectations. And the only part of this equation that you can really control is the expectations because reality will happen however. You
Mm.
might get sick, you might get in a car accident, your spouse might ask for a divorce. You have no control over that. The only thing that you have control over is your expectations.
Mm.
And so, if we adjust them accordingly, we give the opportunity for the math equation to end up in a positive manner rather than negative. So, some people will say, like, oh, I should just lower my expectations. I guess I just won't expect anything of anyone. And that's not what I'm
Mm.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, circumstantially dependent on the situation at hand, sometimes it's good for us to adjust our expectations because, as a person who's a control freak, and I literally have a spreadsheet for when our family travels and it has all the flights and the hotel and the Airbnb. And then my husband's like, I don't even think like he knew which airport we were flying to. You know what I mean? He throws his stuff in a suitcase and then he looks at me and he's like, "Babe, what's taking you so long?" And I'm like, "I am going to rip his head off because I'm not just packing for me, I'm also packing for two little ones. And
Yep.
one of them needs this stuffy and one of them needs this blankie and if we don't have that blankie, it's not going to be a good time tonight." And he doesn't know any of these things. So I have my whole spreadsheet and whatever. And then the flight is delayed. The Airbnb didn't look like what it looked like on the computer. And I just get so pissed because I had all these grand expectations of this family vacation. I'm taking time off work.
Ugh,
Da, da, da. You know what I mean?
you are so describing it right now. I get it.
And I would just like snap at my husband and snap at my children. I was like, "You guys are so ungrateful. When mommy was little, mommy didn't even get to take vacations. And here you guys are fighting about this and this." And then everyone, because when mommy's mad, the whole house goes down.
Hmm.
And then I kind of, I'm like, then I ruined our vacation. And then I go sulk in the bedroom. And then I come out 2 hours later and try to have a reset. But this is the thing, my expectations of this trip were so high because of
Hmm.
all the planning that I had done. And I had put all this pressure on it that perhaps if I had just lowered my expectations to be like, you know what? I'm not working. Our family is together. The flight is delayed. Let's go get some airport food. Like, just make the best of a crappy situation. I wouldn't have blown up like that.
Yeah, but let me give you one little perspective shift just so you know. And this is for the moms out there who are currently doing this stuff. The reason you're snapping is because all the pressure was on you. You had to pick the Airbnb, you had to book the flights, you had to pack everybody. So your kettle is like running so hot that when that happens, it's just natural to react. The men, I watch my husband. He's cool as a cucumber and able to shift and be great and have it be like, "Oh, it's okay. The flight got delayed." But he's not thinking about now you got to change the car on the other side that's picking you up and you got to all the things that now you have to figure out a million things. So I just want to give everybody a little grace, including you, including me, from when we do snap, it's because we have to do everything. And
Yeah.
then that's when the little bit of resentment pops out where you look at them and you're like, oh, yeah, you're all good because you didn't have to do all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we could have another whole episode about the mental load that moms carry. And
Yes.
largely it's an invisible load. It doesn't look like something, you know, but you have to, I mean, just this last summer, I had to piecemeal my kids into 1 week camps and be like, oh no, that won't work because it overlaps with this, but I'll do this in session 2, just to make sure that they were out of the house sometime during the summer, you know, and my husband had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It is true. It is, and I love what you said. And it's an invisible load. So I just want women out there to understand like there's a fucking reason that you're snapping.
It's crazy. I think for people out there listening, when you catch yourself like about to fall off the edge of that cliff, you
Hmm.
need a timeout. You know, when my kids were little, I would give them timeouts. Like we need to have timeouts too, because you are just
Yes.
so on edge that like the next thing that happens is going to push you over the cliff.
Yeah, I call it like when the kettle's running hot, you just gotta shut down for 5 minutes. Just get away from the phone, get away from everything. All right, Hill Squad, we're gonna stop right here, but Tiffany will be back tomorrow, and you're gonna want to listen to part 2 because Tiffany is sharing some of her stories and lessons from Real Housewives of Dallas and what some of our former cast members had to say when the show ended. She's also breaking down everything we should know about anesthesia, like common fears, what we should be doing before to prepare certain medications to avoid or to make your doctor aware of, and how anesthesia affects the brain and body long term. So stay tuned tomorrow for this special episode and also a special gift from Tiffany for our squad. All right, friends, until next time, be nice people, make good choices, and be present. Hey, Heal Squad. We have been on quite the journey together, and we're hearing from so many of you just how much this show is helping you heal and get better, and it makes us feel so good. We love, love, love it, and we just ask that you don't keep it to yourself. Spread the message and share the show or your favorite episode with your friends. And if you want to help us even more, you can leave us a 5-star rating and a comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow us on Instagram at Heal Squad. You can also DM us anytime because we love connecting with you. And finally, you can also join us on Patreon for our monthly live heal events with world-class healers and ad-free episodes exclusive only to Patreon and our Super Heal Squad for as little as $10 a month. So go to patreon.com/Heal Squad to join. Getting better isn't easy, friends, but as I say all the time, it's a whole lot easier if we can do it together. We love you all so much, and we love doing this thing called life with you.
This podcast and all related content published or distributed by or on behalf of Maria Menounos or MariaMenounos.com is for informational purposes only and may include information that is general in nature and that is not specific to you. Any information or opinions expressed or contained herein are not intended to serve as or replace medical advice, nor to diagnose, prescribe, or treat any disease, condition, illness, or injury, and you should consult the healthcare professional of your choice regarding all matters concerning your health, including before beginning any exercise, weight loss, or healthcare program. If you have or suspect you may have a healthcare emergency, please contact a qualified healthcare professional for treatment. Any information or opinions provided by a guest expert or host featured within website or on company's podcast are their own, not those of Maria Menounos or the company. Accordingly, Maria Menounos and the company cannot be responsible for any results or consequences or actions you may take based on information or opinions.